Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Pinot with Phoenix for December 2025. And for once, we've actually got the namesake of the channel, namesake of the show, as I've got a glass here of Pinot Noir. Special occasion being the end of the year, all that good stuff. I was trying to find a bottle of non-alcoholic Pinot, but at the grocery store I went to, I didn't have much luck, and I didn't feel like chasing it down because I had another game I wanted to get to this afternoon. Anywho, my advice if you're going to enjoy this video is pop some popcorn, bring a snack, and sit and settle in. This is going to be a long one since we are recapping the advent of the Phoenix. These December recaps are always longer just because there's so much more I'm able to do during the month, especially this year, where I didn't really set out with a particular number of games in mind I wanted to get to. In fact, I have essentially hit 50 games before I really started paying attention to the count. And I got to 60 without too much trouble, and as you saw if you watched my last game video, I actually did get to 70 games. Like I mentioned, that is what being off for the entire month of December can do for me. So, what say we start off by recapping the games, and we'll start off with a brand new game debut on the channel. As we started off by playing Dice Throne by Roxley Games. This one is a dice rolling, I don't want to call it a boss battler necessarily, as Doug Sessoms now stops by. Evening, Doug, welcome in. I don't necessarily want to call Dice Throne a boss battler because you're not really battling a boss. It's more of like a dice chucking PvP game. It's basically like it's Yahtzee in a way. I'm trying to think of how I want to describe it, because you're essentially rolling the dice trying to attack the other character. And I played it twice, and I really enjoyed it. We played 2 games with the Vampire Lord versus the Seraph. The Vampire Lord ended up being the hero of that one and kind of coming up with a clutch performance. And for the second game, the Shadow Thief took out the Pyromancer by 1 point of damage. Now, the reason this game came into the channel is because if you're coming from Jester's channel earlier, he was talking a little bit about the Christmas in Arkham. I don't think he got into the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament too much in particular, but this was some of the feedback that he was giving me in terms of the ways to determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham, where Fate of the Elder Gods was doing a lot of work for that, where it was basically a lot of time in the prelude, essentially, trying to determine which Ancient One we're facing. Then we had the mini campaign, then we had the campaign, and then it's all over. I'll talk a little bit more about Christmas in Arkham proper. I'll talk a little bit more about Christmas in Arkham. I'm gonna go take some English lessons while I'm at it. Of course, the wine probably isn't gonna help too much with that, but we'll see what we can do there. So it was part of something I was doing to help me figure out, okay, what are some new ways that I might want to use to determine the opponent in Christmas in Arkham? Because I don't like the idea of just pointing at an Ancient One and saying, yeah, that's the one we're gonna face. I did that the very first year, but only so I could establish the tradition. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on that. All good, Jester. Thanks for stopping by tonight. So that's it for Dice Throne. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about Christmas in Arkham because I do have a special topic lined up around that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at that point. Anyway, let's move into our next game, which is Mag 23 Guadalcanal by Historic Wings. Mag 23 Guadalcanal, just like it sounds, puts you in control of the Cactus Air Force in Guadalcanal, trying to push that back the Japanese during World War II. The first game, we had a win we needed badly against the Japanese in the week that we were on. I think we were on like week 3 or 4, I want to say, going 3-3 against the Japanese for the week. Unfortunately, the second week ended up being a washout because there was no way I was flying in heavy rain again, which cost us the week, but nothing I could do about that. And I really like those narrative-focused games. And actually, I was thinking about something you were saying about war games on your recap show, Jester, where I kind of would rank my gaming the same way. The Euro games, then sports games, then war games. And not only that, but I tend to like my war games a bit on the lighter side. And Hex Encounter, I'll talk about this more probably when I get into one of the games still earlier in the month, but still fairly down on the list a little bit. Heavy Hex Encounter games have always scared the hell out of me. But like I said, we're going to file that away for the time being. We are going to come back to that. I definitely like the more narrative styles in my wargaming. But that's it for Mag 23 Guadalcanal. Next game was actually the second new game debut on the channel, as we played Demo Derby Smashdown by Play Games, as Philip Reynolds now stopping by as well. Demo Derby Smashdown by Play Games, and actually Play has been a company that I've been spending a lot of time and money with in the last couple of months. Demo Derby Smashdown is actually my first ever Demolition Derby game on the channel. So it was all kinds of chaos. Admittedly, I've never been a big fan of... Admittedly, I was never a big fan of Demolition Derby, but this game was actually a lot of fun, and it might be another game that I explore in finding a new opponent for Christmas in Arkham and or the Summer of Lovecraft. Again, more on that coming later on in Pinot with Phoenix, as we do have a special topic around that. So definitely liked Demo Derby Smashdown. A very good time, a lot of fun. Anyway, next up, we had another new game debut on the channel, as we played A Touch of Evil by, I believe that's by Flying Frog Games. This one is a colonial horror game. It's almost giving a little bit of Arkham Horror vibes, in that it's got a lot of the same horror theme to it, but this one is colonial horror. Now, admittedly, it does look like an interesting game, and I could see myself doing a little more with it on the channel. I don't know how much I'm going to expand it, though. I'm very particular. I can see myself being very particular about how it's played. For example, I know I would absolutely loathe creating cards for Demo Derby Smashdown. Probably is awesome. I'll have to try that out. Anyway, as I was saying about A Touch of Evil, what was I saying? Oh, I know there are elements in competitive that I would absolutely despise, and a lot of that is just learning more, not only about myself but about the games. Where I think the way I'd probably use A Touch of Evil most likely is as a cooperative game, say in December, since I could see myself doing that as a seasonal game in October, just to get out for thematic purposes is where I'm going with that. So did like A Touch of Evil. It does have a little bit more of a narrative focus where you're going to have to fill in some of the blanks, but there's actually a lot there that I think I could really dig into if I really start digging into the cooperative aspects a little bit more. Anyway, that's it for A Touch of Evil. Next up, we had the Cards of Cthulhu by DVG. This one, just like it sounds, is set in the Cthulhu mythos, and we're trying to deal with the different ancient ones. I know there's Yog-Sothoth, Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, Chognar-Phoggon, and I don't remember what the last one is. I want to say Zalatoth, but I would hardly swear to it. Anyway, this was also our first game playing with the Beyond the Veil expansion, which is the one that adds Nyarlathotep. That's the one that adds Nyarlathotep to the game. Excuse me. I probably want to go to my Crystal Light if I actually want to get some liquid in. But anyway, where was I? Oh yes, the Cards of Cthulhu. This is where we first added the expansion, the Beyond the Veil expansion. Unfortunately, I didn't end up lasting very long because the board just very much took off on me and ended up getting out of control in a hurry. Still a fun game, something I could probably see coming out during August when I do Mythos Month on the channel. Anyway, that's it for the Cards of Cthulhu. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel as we played Bullet Heart by Level 99 Games. This one I'd call an anime shooter game, where you're playing as heroines trying to complete patterns and deal with bosses in that way. The first two games I played, I was doing a lot wrong with it, but I finally was like, I think Jester had stopped by and he's like, "What are you doing?" Probably to the point where I suspect he might never want me to play either of the Bullet games again, even though I did have a lot of fun with them. But once I got everything straight for the last game, and I had a close experience in the last one, and I think I ended up losing that last game once I finally got everything straight for that one. So definitely one I see myself doing more with on the channel. But just took me a little bit, just had a little bit of growing pain with it, but I did enjoy it. Next up, we had another new game to the channel. I think we're already on to, what are we on to right now? Is that I think that's our fifth, this is our fifth new game on the channel already, as we played Hostage Negotiator by Van Ryder Games. In this one, you're basically a hostage negotiator trying to deal with a trying to deal with whoever takes hostages, snaps, whatever, trying to save all the hostages. We actually lost. It's very similar to Final Girl, if you've ever played Final Girl before, but we lost the game quickly due to losing way too many hostages. Now, it's a solo-only game, and I did enjoy it, but I don't think I enjoy Hostage Negotiator as much as I thought I would, I really don't. I think Final Girl, if I had to pick between the two, is the one I'd keep, because I think Final Girl implements the system a lot better. So yeah, definitely growing pains with Bullet Heart. Seems like I did much better. Kind of once I finally started clearing the static out, I'm like, okay, wait a second, let's slow this down, figure it out. And I know with the Bullet games, real time is something I would never touch in that game, because I just don't like real time games is my main problem. Anyway, back to Hostage Negotiator. I think we're actually pretty much done with that. I'd mentioned it being the same system as Final Girl. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel, as we played a game called Spire's End Hildegard. I forget who this is by, but Spire's End Hildegard is basically a choose-your-own-adventure game set in the world of Spire's End. I think the problem, it's actually got a unique dice system to it too, where you're trying to roll dice and get the targets for whatever whatever skill check you're on. I did like the story on it, but I think there are some problems with it. And the dice system is actually fairly gimmicky. One of the problems with it, and I think it's the nature of the beast with any kind of choose your own adventure game, is there's kind of a ceiling on how many plays you can get out of a game like that. And especially with no real consequence, like, for example, if we compare Spire's End Hildegard to something like, say, like a Call of Cthulhu Alone adventure, like Alone Against the Flames. You can also use Alone Against the Tide in that, and I'll talk more about that when we get to Alone Against the Tide. Compared to an Alone adventure, there's actually the consequence of, hey, if you survive your Alone adventure with your character, then you can potentially use that character in a Call of Cthulhu, say, an adventure. Like if you're getting a game group together, if you've got a group that's looking for a character, you're like, hey, I can roll up a character using a Call of Cthulhu Alone adventure. So there's that consequence there, but there's no real, what's the word I want? There's no real continuity with the Spire's End character, because you roll through the adventure and you're like, okay, I'm done with the character at this point. And like I said, with the choose your own adventure games, there is a ceiling, I think, on how much enjoyment you can get out of them, because eventually, the more you play through the game, the more you start to see all of the story. And it's going to be the same. It's admittedly the same for Call of Cthulhu, but again, I think there's more of I think because you've got that arc in Call of Cthulhu where you can potentially bring that character into a campaign, you can kind of lean into the arc of the character a little bit more. But I guess the ramble there is turning into, the story was interesting, but I do see problems with it. And like I said, one of the problems is that ceiling limit. The dice system was, to me, a little bit gimmicky, where you can't just swap the dice in and out. It's not that easy to do. So that's it for Spire's End Hildegard. Next up, we played Invaders from Dimension X by Tiny Battle Publishing. This one has you in charge of a crackpot of a group of space marines trying to deal with aliens from Dimension X. This is a hex encounter game, and like I was saying earlier, I think when I was talking about Guadalcanal, traditional hex encounter games really scare the hell out of me because there's usually a lot of complexity with those games. But it helped here that Invaders from Dimension X actually was a very small game, hence coming from Tiny Battle Publishing. The theme actually did a lot of work here as well, but we were able to get our character out. We were able to get our group out of the scenario, complete that one. And there were also two games. I think it was Attack of the 50-Foot Colossi, and I don't remember what the third game is, but there was a 3-pack of those games that I got, and I could see myself doing more with those. But there's also limited scenarios in there, so I can see that also having a cap on the enjoyment I might get out of those, because that's the thing. Once you play through the scenario, you really aren't getting anything further out of it. There's probably ways to create your own scenarios, but I'd have to dig into that a little bit further. Next up, we had yet another new game debut on the channel as we played We Have a Problem, Mr. President by Play Games. Now, this is not Mr. President by GMT Games. This is a very different game. That one has you being the president as Mr. President. I did want to play that during Advent of the Phoenix, but I just ran out of time to get to it. We Have a Problem, Mr. President by Play Games actually puts you in the role of an advisor to the president trying to solve various crises. I think we played through a natural disaster of some kind. I forget what it was actually called. I ended up playing this twice because the first playthrough, the rulebook just made me red hot. The rulebook made me red hot, and that's the thing with a lot of the play rulebooks. A lot of those are hit and miss. Some of them are good. Some of them are absolute garbage, though. And this was one that I just did not like at all. So I went back, watched another video of it, and the second playthrough was a lot more enjoyable once I figured out, okay, here's how the dice actually work. So the rulebook was still a little bit of a problem, but I think it was less of an obstacle than it was the first playthrough. Now, if this was on, say, my War Room 10 game challenge list, and I was actually scoring the rulebook, this is one I would hit the rulebook very hard on. But I don't know if this would necessarily be on my war game list. Anyway, that's it for We Have a Problem, Mr. President. Next up, we went back to an ever familiar game as we stepped back into the boxing ring to play Title Bout 2 by Straight Jab Media. Of course, as you can probably guess, this one's a boxing simulator. We had Floyd Mayweather against Oscar De La Hoya for this one. And this one ended by a TKO as De La Hoya's ribs didn't hold up. They took a shot from Mayweather, I want to say, in like round 6 or 7. De La Hoya was fighting with it, but his ribs just couldn't last into round 12. So Mayweather ended up taking that by a TKO. Still really enjoy the game. Definitely need to get it out more. And it's one game I'm looking at as being part of what I'm calling my Wide World of Sports project, where I'm still figuring out what the sports are going to be, but I'm not worried about that because Wide World of Sports isn't coming up anytime soon. So, another enjoyable bout of Title Bout 2. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel. Actually, I'm going to call this one new as well. Not the one I'm going to be talking about next, but the next game coming up on the list after this one, where we played Floor Plan. I forget who this one's by. Floor Plan is a roll and write. That's a house designing roll and write, and you're trying to meet your client's demands on what they want their house to be. This one was actually pretty cool and another very quick game. The first design ended up being pretty terrible though, so definitely gonna be something I need to work on. And I could see myself doing more with that, especially if I want to do like a roll and write kind of day. Anyway, that's it for Floor Plan. Next up, we had another one of those choose your own adventure games as we played Dungeons and Dragons: The Mystery of Witch Haven by Obvious Mimic. This one is it's a D&D. Basically, it's a choose your own adventure. So what I was talking about with Spire's End Hildegard, this is one where you've got to have a D&D 5th edition character, but you'll take them through a choose your own adventure. This ended up being a very quick adventure. We didn't even really get into the adventure before Burrell Anastasia, who is the character I had out. She's an elven mage. We decided to be nice, but we got wiped out. So I imagine she's going to be not very happy with us on that in the future. But yeah, you live and learn, right? Anyway, our next game is one that I've been very familiar with as we played Welcome To by by Blue Dog Games. This one is a flip and write actually. It's similar-ish to Floor Plan, but unlike designing the house, you're actually building a suburb. You're actually building a suburb and trying to set up the plans based on what the cards are in the game. This one I actually played 3 times on the channel. I think I played all 3 times on BGA, and it's very easy to do. It's very easy to do play-alongs with these games, where all you have to do is pause the video, get a score sheet, pause the video after each set of cards comes out, and basically make your move. I think I scored 80 points all 3 times I played it. I wasn't paying attention to all 3 games, but definitely one I enjoy, and we'll be seeing more of on the channel. Next up, we turned our attention to knocking off rust with the next replay game, as we played Payoff Pitch Baseball by Sideline Strategy Games. No bonus points here. This one's a baseball simulator. And we actually played this one 4 times on the channel. The first game was a 2016 matchup between the New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates actually won this one with a 4-3 walk-off victory. I think it was like I want to say it was a wild pitch that brought in the winning run, but I forget what actually happened in that one. The second game, well, these were actually some Saturday games that I did. The second game was 1977, as the Milwaukee Brewers were playing the California Angels. Jim Slayton dominated in this one for the Brewers with a 2-hit shutout, as the Brewers beat the Angels by a final score of 6-0. I think the Angels were haunted by 1985 in this one, and we're going to see that as being a bit of a theme in some of the baseball games that I pulled out on the channel this month. Game 3 was a 1986 matchup between the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros. The last time we were at the Astrodome, and the last time we'd been at the Astrodome prior to that game, the Montreal Expos had tied up the 1985 National League Championship Series in my replay against the Astros, and the series never got back to Houston as Montreal took it in 3 straight. And apparently the Astros were feeling the ghosts of 1985 as the Astros blew a 2-0 lead heading into the top of the 8th to lose that game to the Braves 4-2. Then the last time we put Payoff Pitch Baseball on the channel for 2025 was the 2001 demo game, which featured a rematch of the 1985 World Series between the Detroit Tigers and the Montreal Expos. And of course, the demo game, in case you're not familiar with with how I do my replays, the demo game is where I slow the game down in whatever system I'm going to be playing in. Thanks for the kind words, Philip. Love my hockey content. Anyway, the demo game is where I slow the game down and really try to walk you through all of the plays in that game. This is where, if Jester was watching this trying to learn the game, I'd probably have insulted his intelligence with how slowly I was playing. With how slowly I was playing how slowly I play the demo games, I probably would have insulted his intelligence on that. But the Tigers won that game 5-1. So I definitely enjoy Payoff Pitch Baseball, and I think if you asked me to rank my baseball sims right now, I would say Payoff Pitch and Season Ticket Baseball are probably my 1 and 1A. Which one is 1, which one is 1A depends on which time of day you catch me on. And Philip laughing at how I'd probably have insulted Jester's intelligence for how slow I was playing Payoff Pitch. But that's really the idea of the demo game, or demo games, in case I've got a cross-system replay, where I really want to slow it down, A, so the audience can see how the system works, but also B, so I can scrape off rust with the system. And slow is good. The older you get, the more you appreciate slow play games. That was actually still not a terrible pace on the Payoff Pitch demo game, but yeah, I do like to slow it down a bit just to help scrape off rust. Again, it's to let the audience see how the system works at a slow pace, but it's also good for me to scrape off rust with the system. And Philip's only been playing History Maker Baseball Express. Well, we're going to talk about History Maker Baseball a little bit later on the recap. What I want to do here is I want to freeze the top row so I can keep the name of the games visible. So that's it for Payoff Pitch Baseball. I don't think I've mentioned this, but the Tigers did win the demo game 5-1. As Larry Mullins stops by, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to you and yours as well. Happy New Year to everybody on the channel, by the way. I'm sure nobody who's close to 2026 right now in terms of like already having crossed over and dropped the proverbial ball is probably tuning in. Everybody who would be in that, like I know Thomas Van Hare from Historic Wings is over on he's in Sweden right now, and he's probably long asleep by now. But yeah, Tigers won the demo game 5-1. Next up, we had a game that's also going to be kind of a special topic that I'm talking about, as we played Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling by Play Games. When I did my wrestling stress testing last month, I think this was the only wrestling simulator that survived. Well, that's not survived, maybe isn't the word for it. I think the word I actually want for it is the only one I really enjoyed. To the point where, if you remember, I was actually throwing out my TV Pro Wrestling 2 stuff by Downey Games as I was ending that stream, because that engine was just too clunky for me. But Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling, I had a I had a few stress tests I wanted to do with that. There were a few special stipulations that I knew I wanted to include, I thought I wanted to include in a potential federation. And like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I wanted to stress test an Iron Man match where if you're not familiar with wrestling, the Iron Man match is basically where the match goes for a set amount of time. The most falls wins. You might be familiar with 60 or 30-minute Iron Man matches. I knew for a stress test, I didn't want to do a 30 or 60-minute Iron Man match, just in case the stipulation flopped. I went with a 20-minute Iron Man match, and the match went. I wasn't happy with the stress test of how that turned out. It felt like it was too long, and it was getting me too many falls. Plus disqualifications coming up too easily. I had to house rule in some disqualifications. I don't think that would have worked that well. Another stipulation I wanted to stress test was the Elimination Chamber. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Elimination Chamber, it's basically like a domed cage is almost the best way I could describe it. It's built by chain and it's got a steel floor that's actually completely level with the ring. You've got 6 competitors in the match. 4 are locked into mini pods to start the match. Every 5 minutes or so, I think is the way WWE has done it, they'll open a pod and release somebody new into the match. Eliminations can occur by pinfall or submission. Obviously, anything goes. But the problem with that is there were a lot of moving parts in this match, and I didn't really like that I didn't really like the elimination stress test. So I don't think I'm going to use that moving forward. The other stipulation I wanted to stress test, though, was a format called War Games. Excuse me, if you're familiar with old school WCW, or what WWE does now, basically it's 2 rings. Basically, War Games is 2 games flush with each other, with a steel cage enclosing the whole thing. If you're in... Actually, let me see if I can... So, yeah. You basically got your 2 rings with your cage enclosing the whole thing. If you're familiar with how WWE does War Games nowadays, I'm going to turn this monitor a little bit. If you're familiar with how WWE does War Games, they actually don't have a roof on the cage where you can actually perform dives off of it. WCW does have the roof on it. And for my stipulation, I've been wanting to use the roof, as we have the roof on there as part of my War Games. And there were a lot of moving parts there as well, but I think I was a lot happier with how the War Games stress test went. So I could see using that in a potential wrestling federation moving forward. Anyway, that's it for Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling. Next up, we continued Christmas in Arkham as we played Arkham Horror 2nd Edition against Shubni Gudath. I ended up having to break this into a 2-parter. We'd gone into Arkham Horror 2nd Edition leading 1-0. We were trying to pull a sweep out of this one. And we did manage to pull out a sweep, but it took me quite a long time to get it done. And if you remember that game, I ended up getting a gate closure win, where I closed all the gates on the board and had enough gate trophies. Because the thing is, I knew with as many physical items as I started off with, and Shubni Gudath having physical immunity, I think, I knew I was not winning a final battle against Shubni Gudath with all that physical firepower. So that's why I went for the gate closure win and won that way. So we did manage to get the win and pulled out and locked in the win for Christmas in Arkham. Next game we had on the channel was Silent Victory. I think my version is by Consim Press, but it's also by GMT Games. If you're familiar with the Hunters series, the simplest way to describe Silent Victory, I would say, is actually probably American the Hunters. You're in control of a U.S. sub in the Pacific trying to destroy Japanese shipping. We went out for a patrol in the Marianas Trench region, and I really enjoy the Hunters series of games. And in fact, if you tune into my top 100, if you tune into the top 100 board games that I'm going to be doing with Jester early next year, you'll probably see this series on my list. Just playing a little bit spoiler on that. So definitely a series I really enjoy. Again, the narrative focus really helps on that one. That's it for Silent Victory. Next up, we have 3 straight new debuts on the channel. As first up, we played Welcome to New Las Vegas, also by Blue Dog Games. This one is starting to build building casinos, so it's got a lot of similar DNA to Welcome to, but like I said, you're building casinos. The first game went actually did go pretty well. I started really understanding how everything worked after that, though, and ended up winning, I think, both of the other two games for me, or both the other two games. Still one I really enjoy, and actually a funny story about how I picked this one up at Noble Night when I went there earlier this month. Actually, I think it was the first Friday of the month. If you're following me in Solo Gamers Lounge, the Funderground, or Tack Up Wargaming, I think I posted a photo of my trip, basically a selfie with the Noble Night sign in the background. In case you don't know, I do live a couple hours away from Noble Night, and I try to get up there at least once a year. But when I decided I was picking up an order there, I was actually doing a trade with Noble Night because I was doing some serious culling of my collection, and that's one thing that's really helpful with me having Noble Night that close. When I try to get out there at least once a year, I'm usually bringing a bunch of games because I'm culling my collection constantly. I'm constantly fine-tuning my collection, adjusting it, all of that. And in fact, to help me out with that as well, I've got a board game recommendation engine trained on ChatGPT, where I basically feed in how I react to these games, and then it's to the point where I can feed a game into ChatGPT, into my engine, and I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, how would I react to this? And it'll give me some data about the game and tell me how it thinks I'm going to react to it. And I can see I'm actually starting to use that data now in terms of not only culling my games, but looking at games and being like, okay, yeah, I'd probably bounce off this pretty hard. Or in the case of one game with Folklore of the Affliction last month, I was like, ooh, it thinks I would like this. I'll pick it up, put it on the table, feed in the reaction. Where in this case, it was just, oh no, I didn't like this one at all. So that's where I'm starting to use that. Anyway, so back to the story. So I added that and something else to my order. I think it was a mat for Welcome to or something like that. Anyway, they were looking for Welcome to. They looked in the roll and write section, and one of the clerks, I think the lady clerk who was working it that day, came up to me and she said, "Oh, we can't find this game. We're gonna have to take it off the order." And she also thought it was gonna negate the playmat. It didn't negate the playmat because the playmat was actually for Welcome to. So I said, no, leave it in there. I went back to roll, and I was actually looking around a little bit as well, and I was like, something's bothering me about that. So I went back to roll and write, where I thought the game should be, even though it's technically a flip and write, but roll and write's the closest approximation for it. So I went over to roll and write, looked for the game, pulled it out, walked over to the clerk holding it up. She's like, "Did you find it?" My response was, "You didn't look hard enough in roll and write." So that's how I got Welcome to New Las Vegas in a physical copy. So I'll probably be doing a physical playthrough of that at some point. Speaking of Welcome to, we stayed in the Welcome to series as we played Welcome to the Moon by Blue Dog Games. I think I had a whole Welcome to day on the channel. Did I not jot down? I must have not jotted down. Let me look. I might not have jotted down Cartographers, but I know that's a game I played this month. Let me look here. I am almost certain I played Cartographers this month, and in fact, I'm going to go look in my content in my gameplay folder, but I am almost certain I played Cartographers this month. I've got it sorted by date. I might not have played it separately. Actually, I think it was part of a flip and write day is what I did with it. So yeah, I definitely played Cartographers as well. Another game I enjoy, but I ended up being an oblivious ink drinker both times I played it. So yeah, that's it for Cartographers. Where was I? Oh yes, we were looking at Welcome to the Moon. This one's more of a campaign style game where you're basically playing as a captain essentially against not an alpha automa, but I forget what it's actually called. It's not something I'm going to worry about too much though, because the game ended up confusing the hell out of me to the point where the campaign didn't work for me. So weird, I know. I normally really go for my campaign games, but this was one that kind of turned into a miss for me. But of course, you know the old saying, not every game is going to be a winner. So that's it for Welcome to the Moon. Speaking of not a winner, we next played Pacific Tide by Compass Games. If you're familiar with Ostkrieg, which I played last month, Pacific Tide is basically Ostkrieg, but in the Pacific, where you can play as either the US or Japan. Now, the rule book was very unclear, and I think that was something that I bounced pretty hard off of in terms of bouncing off the game. Compass is another company that I think is hit and miss when it comes to their rule books. Like with a lot of their narrative forward games, like their America Bomber games, Night Fighter Ace, I usually like those rule books. But this one was just one I happened to bounce hard off of, to the point where it's actually downstairs in my next to Cull section. I might try to get that out on the channel again, but that's probably going to take me a little while to get out on the channel. I do really like Ostkrieg, though. That one felt a bit more clear to me. We'll have to see what happens with Pacific Tide, though. Next up, we had another Push Your Luck game. We had a Push Your Luck game as we played Hit Z Road by Asmodee. In Hit Z Road, you are controlling a group of characters trying to get from Chicago to Los Angeles on a road trip with zombies harassing you along the way. Now, there are very few mechanics that I will just absolutely say hard no to. Social deduction is probably one of the games where if you offer me, hey Phoenix, you want to go play Secret Hitler or Ultimate Werewolf or Blood on the Clock Tower or something like that, I'm going to tell you to get bent. Because I do not like social deduction. I don't like hidden roll games. Basically, if it's got either of those vibes to it, I'm gonna be out the door and nothing flat. In fact, my local game store has got a whole section of party games on it, which is your social deduction. I just call that my wall of nope, where I walk in, and that's a section I absolutely ignore. Anyway, where I'm going with that is Push Your Luck it's not a hard no mechanic, but it's a mechanic I'm very shy around. Because Lady Luck and I do not have a good relationship at all. So generally with a lot of your Push Your Luck games, the smaller they are, the better they work for me. Hit Z Road is a small Push Your Luck game, so it actually works pretty well for me. And we managed to complete our trip successfully. I think we got 20 some odd victory points. So we did a pretty good job with it. Not as well as I would have liked to do, but sometimes that's just the nature of the beast when you've got zombies after you. I'm going to take a quick drink here before we continue. And yes, in case you're new, in case you're just stopping by, I do finally have a glass of my namesake, of the namesake of this show. I've got a glass of Pinot Noir. Anyway, next up, we actually revisited tennis on the channel as we played Inside Volley Tennis by Inside Sports Games. This one, as you can probably guess, tennis simulator. The first time I played it, I would say it was back in... Actually, I think it might have been back in October when I first played Inside Volley Tennis. I initially bounced off of it. I initially was going to bounce off of it because it seemed like it was a very dry game. And I know Jester's talked about this before, where it's basically a point by point. So you roll the dice, determine who's got control of the action, then consult a matrix, which you'll be familiar with if you've played Inside Pitch by Inside Sports Games. But once I started to add in a little bit more of the narrative, like, oh, a beautiful serve by such and such, turning into an ace, or, oh no, that's a fault. Basically, once I started adding a little more of the narrative around the game to it, that's where I started to really enjoy it, and I kind of was starting to fill in the blanks a little bit more. We had a match between Svetlana Kuznetsova and Maria Sharapova, and I probably just butchered Kuznetsova's name, but Kuznetsova won in straight sets 6-4, 6-3. Definitely enjoyed the game. Probably going to do more with it. I want to figure out how I want to do more with it, though. I don't know if I want to do like tournaments as part of Wide World of Sports or how I want to do that. But I could see at least one of my tennis games landing as part of that project. Anyway, next up, we had another brand new game debut on the channel as we played Star Wars Battle of Hoth by Days of Wonder. Jester was talking about this one earlier as well. This is a Commands and Color-esque game, which my engine I know has told me, yeah, I know, you're going to bounce off of this one pretty hard. Admittedly, it was a theme purchase because I really enjoy Star Wars, and I was like, oh, all right, I'll give this a try. Turned out I really enjoyed it, actually. And I think, again, I think a lot of it was the familiar coat of paint that really helped. So I was getting into, okay, we've got the probe droids out, we've got the snow troopers, we've got the, I forgot what the rebel equivalent was. I kept calling the rebel troops snow troopers. That fishing game I played today looked very good, and you ordered a copy today. Nice, Doug. And we will be talking about that toward the end of the game recap as well. And yes, I did enjoy Battle of Hoth, Jester, and I think a lot of that, like I was talking about before I got a little bit sidetracked. And don't get me wrong, I'm always very happy to interact with chat, so feel free and interact away. Good hex encounter game to play and get into more war games. I don't know if I'm going to go that far with it. I'm definitely going to do more with Battle of Hoth on the channel, though. But and I think a lot of the reason I'm warm to doing more with Battle of Hoth and not necessarily with more traditional hex encounter games, a lot of that I think is due to the theme. Because again, Star Wars is I would say Star Wars is one of my favorite properties. So I also think this system's got room for expansion into other battles. Off the top of my head, I was thinking about it when my playthrough of Battle of Hoth was over. They could easily step into, say, the Battle of Endor, both Endor and with both Death Stars, if they want to do more of a space focus. And Endor on the ground would be easy to do as well, because I think there are enough battles in there and enough things you can do with Endor that you could easily get a good campaign out of that. And I did enjoy Battle of Hoth to the point where I did grab a second copy, since I do want to be able to play through the epic scenario, because for that epic scenario you do need 2 copies of the game in order to have enough minis. I think it's enough minis and 2 copies of the board. So I did pick up a second copy of Battle of Hoth. Now, I don't know if I'd use this as a gateway. Well, it's definitely a Commands and Colors game, and Jester knows more about that than I do. I'm actually going to grab an actual drink of my Crystal Light since my throat's getting a little dry. I know, I'm a two-fisted drinker. I've got my Crystal Light to one side, and I've got a glass of Pinot Noir on the other side. And what I was saying about Commands and Colors, I don't think I see myself stepping into the Commands and Colors world more, because I think the theme there is a little bit too abstract. Well, I don't want to say abstracted, but I definitely didn't see themes I could get into looking at the Commands and Colors. Maybe Ancients without too much complexity, but I think that's probably the only one I'd be interested in. I'll have to give that some thought, though, and I'm not even sure I can track down Commands and Colors Ancients. Anyway, that's it for Star Wars Battle of Hoth. Next up, we had another tennis game on the channel as we played Let's Play Tennis. Again, tennis simulator. This one had a few more modules to it. This one has a for the set, a no rally, and point by point. The only one I didn't touch in my initial playthrough was the no rally. I did play for the set, which basically, if you think of it if you compare it to Glory Days Pro Football and the hybrid mode that you've got there, think of the for the set module, basically giving you a point to jump in, like in Glory Days Pro Football when you roll for your drive, even Glory Days College Football as well. So you roll for your drive in Glory Days Football, and then you get a point to jump into. The For the Set module gives you the same thing before you jump in and start playing it out point by point, similar in Glory Days Football, where you get the point to jump in and then you start playing that out play by play. So we tried out the For the Set and point by point. When we played a full match using point by point, using For the Set, we had Kim Clijsters against Jennifer Capriati from the all-time greats set. Clijsters won the full match when I was using the For the Set module, but when I went to a full point by point set, Jennifer Capriati actually won that game. And you'll roll the dice. You roll the dice to get your volley results, your faults, all of that fun stuff. I really enjoyed Let's Play Tennis, and I definitely see myself doing more with that on the channel as well. That's it for Let's Play Tennis. Next up, we went back to the Terra Mystica world as we played Gaia Project by Furland Spiel. I think this was another one on Board Game Arena. This one, I think, is the simplest explanation for it is Space Terra Mystica. I ended up winning this game as the Geodens against the Taklons, 136 to 122. This is another game that I really enjoy. And it was either this one or Age of Innovation, which I did play earlier, which I did play in the month as well. We'll talk about Age of Innovation when we get there. This one kind of started, these two started me thinking between the two of them. I don't necessarily like Euros, but I'm really good at them. And I think a lot of that is just because I tend to be a planner. I tend to be a planner on a lot of things. Like you always hear me talk about my content spreadsheet, because I do try to plan out content since I like setting up games ahead of time, especially for my more evening stuff. So I do enjoy Gaia Project, and that's a game you might see on my top 100 of games of all time, which will be starting on, I think, Sunday, January 15th. Let me double check which day that is. I think January 15th is a Sunday. Got my calendar right here. And no, it's actually a Thursday that we're starting that. So Thursday, January 15th is when we're starting that. I'm not like Jester. I don't have the graphic pulled up, but I can probably get it in short order. Let me see here. You know what? It's going to be quicker if I go to Facebook for it. Anyway, as Bumsy now joins in. From the UK. Happy New Year, Bumsy. Have a good time with your football game, Jester. I know you wanted to stop it. I know you wanted to watch that. We will talk a little bit later, I'm sure. Anywho, where was I? Oh, yes. Gaia Project, Space Terra Mystica. I really enjoy it. Next up, we had another... Actually, this wasn't a new game on the channel either, as we went back to This War of Mine by Awakened Realms. This game dumps you into the middle of a fictional civil war. Admittedly, the war skin is a little bit on the thin side, but it's more about what the civilians are doing to try to survive. Our experience hasn't been going well, especially as things have started going sideways on us. But the experience is very well done. It's a phenomenal game. Actually, this is one I picked up from Jester in one of our trades that we did this year. We did do a couple trades where I was calling some stuff, he was calling some stuff. We were able to make the numbers work out, and we ended up trading. And the funny thing is, Jester got rid of This War of Mine, and he's probably not going to mind if I talk about this. He got rid of it because he said he wasn't having fun with it. Now, I can definitely see where it's not a fun game, but for me at least, the fun, it's not supposed to be a fun game. I think it's one you play more for the experience, in my opinion. I've talked about this before on the channel, where we tend to romanticize like the tank commander, or as war gamers, I think we tend to romanticize the tank commander or the U-boat skipper or the general or whoever. We don't necessarily pay that much attention to the civilians behind the lines. This is where I think This War of Mine does a great job in really focusing in on that experience in particular. So kind of gives you atmospheric. That's actually a very good word for it. Thanks, Bumsy. It's a very atmospheric game. Atmospheric and thematic, really. So definitely gives you something to think about with those civilians trapped behind the lines. Very well done, in my opinion. Anyway, that's it for This War of Mine. Speaking of romanticizing the war games, we were back to our fictional timeline of World War II Europe as we played America Bomber, Evil Queen of the Skies by Compass Games. This is the namesake of the America Bomber series, where this one's set in an alternate timeline of World War II Europe, where Nazi Germany has actually won the war, and now they're turning their attention to the United States. Problem is, there's a little thing called the Atlantic Ocean separating Germany from the United States. Enter a forward base in the Azores and the America Bomber, which is how the Germans are attacking the U.S. mainland. We had another successful mission to New Jersey in this one, and I really enjoy this series with that alternate theme. And that's one of my big things with war games, is I like having the war theme on some of these games, but I don't necessarily like having the script attached to them, which was one of the big problems I had with the Field Commander series by DVG. I think that was way too much on rails for me. And the various challenges didn't really do enough for me to pull them off rails and give me a different experience. So that's it for America Bomber Evil Queen of the Skies. Next up, we had a play of Sentinels of the Multiverse by Greater Than Games. This was one I actually did on Steam, as we took Legacy, Wraith, Fnatic, and Night Mist against Ambuscade at Megalopolis. I know Jester's a big fan of Legacy, so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll try him out. But I'm going to stick with Wraith, one of my favorites. Turns out Legacy and Wraith together is actually a pretty nasty combo. And we just absolutely trashed Ambuscade. Because once we were able to get past the devices and make sure we trigger them in a way that especially the Sonic Mines, we had to keep those under control. But yeah, we wrecked Ambuscade something fierce in that game. Definitely a fun game, and I'll talk a little bit more about Marvel Champions. If I had to pick between the two, I think I'd probably pick Marvel Champions, just because, I'll talk about that when I get to Marvel Champions, because that was another game that we got to on the month as well. But I had a specific purpose in mind with that Marvel Champions game. That's it for Sentinels of the Multiverse. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel, as we played Return to Dark Tower, the board game, by Restoration Games. I'm drawing a designation to the board game because I also have the role-playing game, but I didn't play the role-playing game this month. This one, if you're familiar with the Dark Tower, you're basically fighting against the tower. I forget who our nemesis was, but we played an introductory game. I played a true solo game with one character because my objective was not necessarily to win. I just wanted to push a few pieces around, get the feel for the game, because it had been a while since I'd played it. Last time I played it, I was in a group at my local game store. So I wanted to pull it out and see what I thought of it. I actually really enjoyed this one. And I was worried about the tower being in the way. I think I was able to just work around everything on that, but definitely something we're going to put on the channel again. Next up, we went to building a zoo as we played Arc Nova I think this is by Furland Spiel as well. This one is building a zoo, and we actually played this one on BGA. The module on BGA was good. I think there were a few clunky spots to it. Might have been the player, but still really enjoy the game, even if we lost the game. The goal is apparently to get 100 points, which is where your conservation and appeal markers are supposed to cross. Ultimately, you couldn't make them cross, but still a very good game. To the point where it actually inspired me to grab something else that I've been playing quite a bit lately. Anyway, next up we had another brand new game on the channel as we played Tank on Tank by Lock and Load Publishing, and cheers. And that actually started, I actually asked the story about that when I was the last guest on the War Room with Jester. He talked about that. I asked, where does it come from when everybody drinks when they say Lock and Load? Apparently it was a drinking game with Tony's Board Life, who every like fifth word or something was Lock and Load. So Jester just made a drinking game out of it. That's where that came from. Anyway, in this one's a tank battler. It's a Hex Encounter tank battler. It's another one where I think the size helps out. We had the Germans against the Americans in a simple head-to-head scenario. I think it was about control of a city. I was shocked to see that the Americans had actually won the scenario with one tank left. Now, as I mentioned, I'm kind of shy around Hex Encounter games, but I'm kind of shy around Hex Encounter games. The smaller, the better. This one I enjoyed, and I could see if I had anybody to play games with at work, I could see bringing it to work and maybe playing through a scenario on a lunch hour with somebody. But that would require having somebody at work that actually would want to play war games with me. And of course, you guys know I'm ever the charmer around people. So yeah, I've got all kinds of people lined up to want to play war games with me. Anyway, that ramble aside, next game on the channel was back to the Terra Mystica world again, as we played Age of Innovation by Furland Spiel. This was another play on Board Game Arena. And I did manage to beat the Automa in this one, and I really enjoy this one. So, if you had to ask me to rank the three Terra Mystica games, I think I'd probably go in reverse order of release. So it would be Age of Innovation, then Gaia Project, and finally Terra Mystica. The reason for that is because I think Jester made this comment about he could see Age of Innovation taking Terra Mystica's place. And I think he's right on that. And the reason why I think he's right on that is because Age of Innovation is basically like a souped-up, improved Terra Mystica. It adds just enough with the innovations to feel like you're adding something, but it's a lot of the same flavor. Also, one thing that helps with Age of Innovation is the varied bonuses for the victory point tracks if you go high enough. That's one thing I don't like about Terra Mystica, is all of the victory point tracks are all static. What I mean by that is you don't get any kind of bonuses on them. So there isn't necessarily a case of, oh, I need to advance up this track because I need this resource in Terra Mystica, where there is that present in both Age of Innovation and Gaia Project. And the reason I'm ranking it ahead of Gaia Project is mainly because it's basically more like Terra Mystica, really. To me it's a bit simpler, where you don't have to worry about space, you don't have to worry about adjacency, range, all of that, where you have to do in Gaia Project, which makes sense to worry about it in Gaia Project. I just think thematically everything is a lot easier in Age of Innovation. That's it for Age of Innovation. Next up, we played Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. This one is an RPG set in the Cthulhu mythos. We had Silas Miller out, continuing his stories with bodies being snatched. His run of that scenario, we're still going through it, but that session ended with him being knocked out and being abducted. We don't know what's knocked him out yet. We're going to have to find that out in our next session. So, yeah, definitely got more story to tell there. Anyway, next up, we had Star Wars: The Deck Building Game by Fantasy Flight. The way I would start with teaching this one is it's basically Star Realms in a Star Wars coat of paint, where you've got the Rebels and the Empire, and they're battling for the Force. The Rebels actually won this game, and I did enjoy it. The way I was playing it solo was I was playing both sides. There are some unofficial solo modules on Board Game Arena that I might try out at some point. This is definitely a small enough game that I could see pulling it out to try those out. Somehow we're about an hour into the stream, and we're only halfway through the games. Like I said, the virtues of being off in December. Next up, Jester was back on the channel as we finished up Christmas in Arkham with Elder Sign by Fantasy Flight. Elder Sign is, at its simplest, Elder Sign is basically Cthulhu Yahtzee. We are trying to go through adventures, matching up your dice rolls to your tasks. We managed to finish Christmas in Arkham easily against Shubni Gudath, with finishing up what I would consider to be not like an easy sweep. Like, we didn't breeze to it, but we didn't go use any kind of effort that really ruined us either. Still enjoy the game as the anchor of Christmas in Arkham, and I will talk more. Like I said, I'm going to talk more about Christmas in Arkham as we get into a special topic for that. Next up, we had another baseball simulator as we played History Maker Baseball. This one by Play Games. This one moved us back to the 1967 season as the Los Angeles Dodgers were playing against, I think had the Dodgers and the Giants moved. I don't think they had yet, actually. So this would have been the Brooklyn Dodgers against the New York Giants. The Giants won this game 7-3. Actually, I think they did move. I think they were in Los Angeles and San Francisco, respectively, by this point. Anyway, the Giants ended up winning this game 7-3. And I really enjoy the narrative focus it's got in here, because it's got you, rather than focusing necessarily on stats per se, it's got you focusing on characteristics. So you're rolling red, white, and black dice. So you're checking, say, is the pitcher flash? If yes, then this happens. If no, then move to the batter. Maybe the batter is he a whiffer, for instance? It's basically a series of checks in that game, and I really enjoy that narrative focus. We'll probably talk a little bit more about baseball simulators next time I go through baseball stress testing, which will probably be after my 2001 season replay. Anyway, next game is Defending America, Intercepting the America Bombers by Compass Games. This is the other side of America Bomber, where instead of playing as the pilot in the America Bomber, you're now playing as an American interceptor trying to defend the U.S. from the America Bombers. We only had one session of that because our interceptor ended up getting shot down over the Atlantic. We ended up having a fire in our plane, and we managed to bail out due to the fuel tank being on fire, but we ended up being lost at sea due to exposure. Because the Atlantic Ocean, it turns out, is not very friendly for swimming in. So, yeah. Pilot ended up lost. And I do enjoy, it's another narrative-focused war game, which I really enjoy that. So definitely going to do more with the America Bomber series on the channel. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel. Actually, we had a play day coming up on the channel here. Starting with a new debut, as we played Dodgeball World Tour by Play Games. This one's actually based on the Dodgeball movie. And for a fun game, I decided to take a current conflict and take it off the battlefield. I decided to take a current conflict, take it off the battlefield, and move it into the dodgeball court, where we had Russia playing against Ukraine in a game of dodgeball. Ukraine won that game, and it turns out I had a surprising amount of fun with it. So you do have TV balls, and you've got your regular balls that you've got to worry about. Those balls can potentially increase your dodge rating, but I'm getting into the mechanics of the game. I still had a lot of fun with dodgeball, and I'm kind of surprised I did, actually. Something I could see doing more with on the channel. Excuse me. Before we talk about my next game, though, I'm going to take a small break because I need a throat lozenge. Don't want coughing throat. Not coughing. Here's what I want. Much better. Got my throat lozenge right here, which I'm going to pop in. There we go. Next up on our play day, we had Red, White, and Blue Racing, also by Play Games. Just like it sounds, it's a racing game. I had Juan Montoya. We actually had a race. I forget what race we did, but we were at Talladega Motor Speedway for a race. Juan Montoya ended up basically taking the lead, I think in like lap 3 or something, and he almost went wire to wire on that race. That game is a lot of fun. So that's something I could see potentially using on the channel, also as part of Wide World of Sports. Anyway, next up, we went back to the golf course as we played History Maker Golf by Play Games. This one, as you can probably guess, golf simulator. We had Annika Sorenstam versus Kari Webb in match play at Pebble Beach. That's from the Women's All-Time Great Golfers set. Sorenstam won, and it turns out match play is actually the way I'm probably going to be featuring History Maker Golf. I had a lot of fun with match play and History Maker Golf. Like I said, I think that's probably going to be the way I'm going to feature it. I tried tournament mode, and that just didn't work. I even tried to do smaller groups. That really didn't work either. And again, it's that N word again, narrative. Because the game is basically helping me tell the story, and a lot of Play Games do that. That's it for History Maker Golf. Next up, we have the first of a couple of games that's probably going to make you guys say, okay, fat ass here needs to go out and get some fresh air, talk to people, and touch grass. As we played Bolorama by Play Games. I actually played this quite a few times, and I was even teaching this to my mom when I was home on the other side of the state for Christmas. This one, as you can probably guess, bowling simulator. I was very surprised that this one was a lot of fun, and I could see using this one to maybe determine my opponent in Christmas in Arkham or the Summer of Lovecraft, but I'm going to talk more about that later on. Now, in terms of how I got Bolorama, my original thought during the play sale was, why would I want to get a bowling game? If I want to go bowling, I'll just go to a bowling alley. Then I stopped to think about it. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If I want to go bowling, I have to go to a bowling alley. Bowling alley involves other people. You guys know I'm not big on people, so that's why I went back to the play sale, ordered the bowling game, and I got the bowling game in my collection. So yeah, a lot of fun. Then next up, we had another pair of new game debuts on the channel, as my Battle of the Bulge game was Lanzerath Ridge by DVG. Like I said, this one is set in the Battle of the Bulge. You're trying to defend your positions. Now this one took me a while to figure out the rules, because this is another one where DVG is another company that I think is hit or miss with their rules, but I was able to figure it out, and I definitely enjoyed the constant tension of the Germans breathing down our necks during the Battle of the Bulge. And it was a lot longer than I anticipated, because I was expecting this to be like an hour and a half, and I think some of that was just me fighting with the rules and trying to get the feel for everything. I wanted to do a Valiant Defense Day, but after 2 hours of Lanzerath Ridge, I was like, I can't do this. So the next game we had on the channel was actually another Italian U-boat-esque game, as we played By Stealth and Sea by DVG. This one is focusing on Italian manned sub attacks on British ports. The mission was actually brutal due to unreliable vessels, but that actually worked very well in the story. Apparently, in some of the history I was looking at, those manned subs were actually those manned torpedo attacks. I think there were actually a lot of problems with those games. There were a lot of problems with those vessels, or they weren't very reliable. So thematically, it does work out. Anyway, next game on the channel was the Guild of Merchant Explorers by AEG. So this one has you playing a group of explorers similar to cartographers. I think this is one Jester introduced me to, and I've really enjoyed. I played this twice on BGA. The first game we played ended up being a loss because we couldn't get some of our goals. The second game went a lot better, though. Once I was able to get some goals I was able to manage. And I do really enjoy this game as well. Next up, we went back to the Baseball Diamond as we played Stratomatic Baseball by Stratomatic Games. Another baseball simulator. This one took us to the 2022 season as we played the Cincinnati Reds against the Colorado Rockies. The Reds won 7-2. I was definitely rusty at it, but I think some of that is me trying to get back into baseball brain because of my 2001 season replay. And that's part of why you see me the month before a replay. That's part of why I spend my Saturdays scraping off rust with the system. So I need more reps about it with Strat Baseball, but I don't know if I'm going to get those more reps because admittedly, Strat Baseball, I've kind of got a meh kind of feeling to it. I'm not hostile to it, but when it comes to baseball, I'm not going to be like, oh my god, I've got to get Strat Baseball out. I know Baseball Demos it swears by Strat Baseball. He'd probably call heresy if he heard me talking about Strat Baseball. Where it's, like I said, it's got that meh feeling for me. I'm not, I don't hate it, but I'm not totally in love with it either. It's just kind of there, if I'm being perfectly honest. It's another baseball system, essentially. So, I'll talk a little bit more about baseball sims as well, a little bit later. Next up, we went back to a narrative wargame aspect. As we moved over to the Battle of Britain, we played Tally Ho by Historic Wings. Just like it sounds, it's set in the Battle of Britain. This one was actually a brutal mission for the UK. The British did manage to down an ace, but the Germans ultimately won the day. And I could see myself doing more with Tally Ho on the channel, but I think I'm going to be fairly picky about when that game comes out. I'll have to figure out how I want to do that. Next up, we've got Overflight, also by Historic Wings. This one is more of an evasive game set in the Cold War, where you're flying over the Eastern Bloc, actually the Warsaw Pact bloc, essentially. The Warsaw Pact bloc. My initial play of this one was actually fairly brutal, where I was second-guessing myself constantly. So I stepped away from it for a bit, watched the video, and it felt like I was doing everything right, so I pulled it out again. And the second game went much better in terms of me figuring out how the rules went. Unfortunately, however, there was an electrical failure that made sure the photos I had taken couldn't get developed. So do enjoy the game, narrative focus to it. I might do a campaign of that as well, but I'll talk more about that with another special topic I've got lined up. Next up, next up we played another game I got from Jester, as we played Gloom of Kilfirth by All or Nothing. This one is set in the world of Kilfirth, and you're trying to explore and defeat an ancient adversary before the world descends into gloom. Now, this ended up being a 2-part playthrough, but I did run out of time. I really enjoyed the game, though, and I was thinking about this, where it compares to Darkest Night in that it can be a little bit of a slog at trying to find the keywords you need. But I think for me, at least, with Gloom of Kilfirth, I did feel like I was making progress in that game, even if I wasn't finding the items I needed. Whereas I could use the other items to help me with my other encounters and make them easier. So it feels like it doesn't really make sense, but it feels like there's character progression in terms of your character getting stronger, even if there isn't necessarily the there's character progression without there being story progression. So the story part can be a bit of a slog, but there's definitely character progression. As you complete each part of your saga, you do unlock one of your skills and get stronger that way. So that's where I'm going with there being character progression, if not necessarily always story progression. So maybe I'll have to see if I can get a copy of Darkest Night again and try that again. Anyway, that's it for Gloom of Kilfirth. Next game on the channel was Western Front Ace by Compass Games. This is another Greg Smith game. This one's actually set in World War I Europe, and you're playing a fighter pilot trying to go through missions and last out the war. Unfortunately, Elwin Bowman, when he went up, he's the pilot we've been playing as. His plane stopped a few too many German bullets, and he ended up getting shot down. As the British didn't have parachutes, he ended up plummeting to his death. So we're going to have to roll up a new pilot. But I do enjoy the game, and I probably will be rolling up a new pilot for that one. I know Cardboard Commander is a huge fan of Western Front Ace. So definitely a game I enjoyed, and I see myself doing more with it on the channel. Next up, we had another new game debut on the channel with a game I acquired from Jester, as we played Rogue Dungeon by, I forget who Rogue Dungeon is by. But this one is a very small dungeon crawler, where I was playing as the sorceress for this one. There's 5 levels in the dungeon, and you're trying to face a boss. The sorceress didn't make it all the way down, but I still had fun with the game. Not like, oh, I want to immediately play this again. More like, yeah, I could see myself playing this again at some point. Anyway, that's it for Rogue Dungeon. Next up, we had a Christmas-themed game as we played Final Girl by Van Ryder Games. You heard me talk a little bit about Final Girl earlier. This one you're playing as the final girl in your own slasher horror flick. Normally I go for my horror more cosmic than slasher, but this one I didn't mind the slasher aspect of it. We played Cindy against Krampus for a Christmas-themed game, and Krampus ultimately won the day, but I had a lot of fun with it. Again, not, oh my god, I want to play this again, more like, yeah, I'd play it again. Speaking of I'd play it again, we had another new debut on the channel as we played Bullet Star by Level 99 Games. I could have lumped this in with Bullet Heart, but they technically are 2 separate core games, so I'm counting them as separate core games. This one we played twice, ended up 1-1 on the day. This is basically just a different reskinning of Bullet Heart, where you're trying to complete patterns with your bullets, hit the bosses, potentially hitting each other if you're playing free-for-all. I don't see myself ever playing this game as free-for-all, but I could be convinced, but it would take a lot of convincing, that's for sure. Next game, we had my 1 or 1A baseball simulator as we played Season Ticket Baseball by Sports Mogul Games. For this one, we went to the 1998 season as the Chicago Cubs were playing the St. Louis Cardinals at Busch Stadium. The Cubs had a 9-6 lead going into the top of the 9th, and they were still sweating bullets. Mark McGwire did manage to hit a home run in the bottom of the 9th, but it was only a solo shot, and the Cubs won 9-7. I really like how Season Ticket integrates the stadiums. And admittedly, with my baseball sims, I've gotten to some kind of stadium integration as being a must-have. In fact, that's a lot of why Appa Baseball ended up leaving my collection. And why It's part of why I'm not in love with Strat, where it's got stadium integration to it, but it's very light. where I don't know if you really feel, I don't know if you necessarily feel the stadiums individually in Strat the way you do in a payoff pitch or in a season ticket, or even a fall classic or an inside pitch, which I'll talk about those two a bit later. But yeah, like I said when I was talking about payoff pitch and season ticket, I'd say are my 1 and 1A when it comes to baseball simulators, and which is which depends on the day you catch me on. Next up, I alluded to Marvel Champions earlier. We did play that a couple of times on the month. I wanted to do a Dragon Cards and a TTS comparison, but TTS just ended up having a meltdown on me. So I just played on Dragon Cards, which is a new format Jester's been playing on. I had Phoenix and Black Widow out against Rhino, and we just barely won that game, as Black Widow managed to stop a scheme that would have won it for Rhino, and we were able to finish Rhino off. I do still enjoy Marvel Champions, and I was going to start talking briefly about Marvel Champions versus Sentinels of the Multiverse. I think if I had to pick between the two, I think I prefer Marvel Champions, just because with Marvel Champions, there's a lot more customization, whereas Sentinels of the Multiverse is easier to set up, and what you get for the deck is what you get. There's no customization with it. I think I like having the options in Marvel Champions a little bit more, where, say, I think Storm came with a leadership deck, and I built her aggression instead. Where maybe I wanted to explore, what if I explore Storm as a protection, or as a justice, or whatever. I think I like having more of that customization to play around with. But ultimately you can't go wrong with either one. They're two great games. So whichever one you want, have at it. As for Dragon Cards, all in all, I would say I mostly like Dragon Cards. There are some problems with it for some of the things I do, especially for Arkham Horror, the card game. And I'm probably going to do the first scenario of the winter campaign coming up on Dragon Cards. But I did a whole video earlier this month where I was actually poking around with Dragon Cards for Arkham Horror, the card game in particular. I'm not going to get totally spoilerific on that in case you want to go watch the full video. But in terms of Dragon Cards and Arkham Horror, the card game, I wasn't nearly as happy with Dragon Cards as I think Jester was raving about it for Marvel Champions, at least. I tend to be a little bit more skeptical. I tend to like wanting to poke around with things myself before I pass judgment on them. And I think for Arkham, there are definitely problems I see with Dragon Cards for Arkham Horror. Like I said, I'm going to do probably the first scenario of the winter campaign on there. But other than that, I'm probably going to be in TTS for most of that campaign. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. That's it for Marvel Champions. Next up, we've got Disney Animated by Funko Games. The simplest way to describe Disney Animated, I would say, is it's basically cooperative Ark Nova. Your goal is to make some of the most famous movies in the Disney world. I think all the movies that are in there are 101 Dalmatians, Aladdin, Alice in Wonderland, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and Fantasia. For this playthrough, we had 101 Dalmatians and Aladdin, and both of those films got made. You also got the villains harassing you at every turn. So in that game, we had Cruella de Vil and Jafar harassing us. So I'm actually starting to pick up some of those Disney movies because I want to sit down, at least those movies, and watch them at some point. I just need to find time to do it. Anyway, that's it for Disney Animated. Next up, we went into second season football by Play Games. This one's a football simulator. For this one, we went to the 1999 season. I played the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. For this area, that's always one of the big rivalry games. But my stream was actually having a lot of problems. You might remember right before I went across the state, I was having some problems with my stream because I tried to unbox Pavlov's House as well, but I had a fit with that. To the point where I was like, okay, I can't deal with this right now. But everything seems to be behaving a lot better now. I wasn't having any problems earlier today, and I was playing quite a few games on the channel. I think I had the sense that I was fighting the stream more than I was fighting the game. So at some point, I am going to pull out second season football again and see what I think of it. But I liked what I saw of the system. It's got more of that narrative aspect again. There's that narrative word again, where I could see myself doing more with second season football on the channel. Next up, we went back to the Call of Cthulhu universe, but this time we found ourselves alone against the tide. This one's set in Esbury, Massachusetts. I'm not going to get spoilerific on everything going on there. And actually, Dave's Tabletop Gaming, who I was hoping would stop by tonight, hopefully he's having fun wherever he is, and hopefully everybody's having fun wherever they're at. He actually stopped by. He was making most of the decisions for that adventure, which you got to stop by on occasion. You never know when I might be like, oh, hey, I've run this adventure several times before. Maybe you get to make the decisions on these. Like the next time I pull out Call of Cthulhu Alone Against the Flames, you never know. If you're in chat, I may pull you in and say, hey, you're making the decisions for this video. He actually had a lot of fun with that, and I'm glad he enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun running it too, even if we ended up getting the character stabbed to death at the end of the story. Still, it was a lot of fun. Next up, we went back to the links as we played Appa Golf at Monterey. Like you'd think, this one's a golf simulator. But this one's more shot-by-shot golf. I ended up 1 under on the hole, but I was doing a lot of things wrong from the sounds of it. Jester was making comments trying to help. What I think he doesn't know, though, and he's going to find out when he watches this, is I'm very near the point of giving up on shot-by-shot golf. Because it's more thinky than I think I want out of my golf games. I was sitting on that for a while, not just because I had a bad time with Appa Golf. I was finding with History Maker Golf, I really kind of liked having the shot-by-shot aspect kind of abstracted out of it. Where I think I like more of a hole-by-hole, where I can fill in a little bit more of the narrative, especially when you roll on the course, and if the course controls the action, say you get into the trees on the second shot, where that's easy to work out. Say your first shot is good into the fairway, but you put a bad hook on it, you end up in the trees, or maybe you end up getting ambushed by sand or whatever. So I'm thinking at this point I'm probably going to be going with History Maker Golf as my main golf game. Just because I like that narrative shot by shot, or just because I like that narrative aspect a little bit more, whereas I don't like the shot by shot as much, and it's way more thinky than I think I like in my golf games. I'm probably getting rid of ASG Golf at the same time. So that'll be at least 2 games coming out of my collection. Next up, we went back to the football world as we played Momentum Football by Downey Games. This one's a drive-by-drive football simulator, and for this one we went to the 1985 season as the San Diego Chargers were playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals ran away with that game. They won that one 38-14. It's more of a highlight-driven game. I still enjoy it, but the narrative is very, very thin. Where you're having to fill in a lot more of the blanks on the drives. So that is something to be aware of in that game. But I could see using that as part of a replay engine moving forward. In fact, when I did my 1972 season replay last year, I actually used Momentum Football to do it. So that's it for Momentum Football. Next up, we went back to World War II Europe for a couple of games as we played Valkyrie, a Black Orchestra game by Tabletop Tycoon. This one has you trying to assassinate Hitler in World War II Europe, with Hitler, Goebbels, and Himmler harassing you at every turn. I actually was playing Klaus von Stauffenberg and General Ludwig Beck, both Wehrmacht characters. They managed to assassinate Hitler, and I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoy that game. Then we played Black Orchestra just because I wanted to get a side-by-side comparison, and I did that on Vassal. Same goal, same characters, same result, same enjoying the game. But I think I like Valkyrie more due to it having a lot less sprawl, not just in Europe, but there's a lot less to manage on the board. Still, these 2 games do a lot of work in terms of evoking the theme. Where if I were to pick, say, my top 10 list of games that evoke the theme, Black Orchestra would definitely be on that list. Valkyrie probably would be as well. But like I said, I think I'm enjoying Valkyrie a little bit more due to there being a lot less sprawl in that one. Anyway, that's it for Black Orchestra. Next up, we had another one of my top 10 in my top 100 list of all time from the last 2 years, as we played Dune Imperium by Direwolf Digital. This one is a deck builder worker placement set in the world of Arrakis as we're trying to control the spice. The blue player, I forget who the blue player was, really ran away with this game. And worker placement, I talk about mechanics I hard shy away from. Worker placement, I think, is for me at least, worker placement is a mechanic I tend to lean toward no on, in terms of like being a mechanic I bounce off of hard. But I think the combination of worker placement and deck building in Dune Imperium actually does a great job for me and helps me really enjoy that game. So you might see it on my top 100 list again this year. Make sure you tune in for that starting on Thursday, January 15th. That'll be at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, over on Jester's channel. Anyway, our next game was Twilight Inscription by Fantasy Flight. Simplest way to describe this one, Twilight Imperium that doesn't take all day. It's a roll and write. It's basically an epic roll and write where you're trying to manage 4 sheets of dry erase paper, trying to make progress toward Mechatol Rex, and have the strongest civilization in the galaxy. Or get a decent score if you're playing solo. For this one, I was playing as the Sardak Nor. I scored 60 points in that game, which ended up as a fledgling domain as I was playing on easy. I really enjoy Twilight Imperium, or Twilight Inscription. Excuse me. Normally, my group has a once-a-year game of Twilight Imperium, because we can only pull it out once a year. But we never played Twilight Imperium this year, and honestly, I really don't miss Twilight Imperium. It's got a lot of things I bounce off of. Like, politics in games, I really don't like that. That's one of the big reasons I had problems with Commander in Magic the Gathering. Because I don't really like that heavy politics being in my game. And not just from the political phase of voting on the agendas, but even negotiations of, hey, if you give me this, I'll give you this, or hey, let's go gang up on this person. It's got a lot of social aspects to it as well that I'm really discovering that I bounce hard off of. So I could honestly see Twilight Imperium leaving my collection before 2026 is over. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on that. Anyway, that's it for Twilight Inscription. Next up, we had another role-playing game which was a new debut on the channel, as we played Dragonbane by Free League Publishing. The simplest way I'd describe this is it's Free League's D&D. It's a fantasy RPG set in the world of the Misty Vale. We ended up, and I really like the roll under system. So you've got your skills set up, and you roll a d20. If you roll under your skill, you succeed. If you roll over, you fail. Rolling 1 is a dragon, which is considered to be good, so you get an extra bonus effect. Whereas if you roll a natural 20, you roll a demon, and you're considered to fail, basically with an extra penalty. Both of my characters got defeated in the intro scenario, because I wanted to play that to get the feel for how the system works and see if maybe I wanted to replace D&D with it. I'm probably going to keep both though, but I do like Dragonbane and I want to do more with it. That's it for Dragonbane. Next up, we have another Push Your Luck game in Lucidity, Six-Sided Nightmares by Foxtail Games. This one dumps us into the world of dreams, and we're trying to prevent the nightmares from waking up and taking over us. Unfortunately, I lost both games in this one. It's also a very small Press Your Luck game, which, like I said, I have not liked Press Your Luck games, but this one being small also helps. So I could see myself doing more with this on the channel as well, especially if I want something light. Anyway, that's it for Lucidity. Next up, we're finally on to the last games for the year, and we're just about an hour and a half into the stream. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Next up, we played Inside Pitch Baseball by Inside Sports Games. This one took us to the 1988 season, as the New York Yankees were at Tiger Stadium to take on the Detroit Tigers. The last time the Yankees and the Tigers were at Tiger Stadium, the Tigers were busy wrapping up the American League Division Series over the Yankees in my 1985 season replay by a final score of 3-1. And here, the Tigers did it again as they shut out the Yankees with a 6-0 performance behind a very solid outing by Jack Morris. I feel like I'm still fighting Inside Pitch a little bit, but I do enjoy this one. Again, it's that narrative aspect to it. I'm not to the point where I'm ready to purge Inside Pitch. Honestly, if I were to purge another system now, well, I'll touch on that briefly once I get through my last games, because I've only got 2 more to go. Next up, we've got Real-Time Proficient by Play Games. Here's another game that's really going to make you guys go, okay, Phoenix Knight needs to go outside, get some fresh air, touch grass, talk to people. Because this was actually, I'm actually surprised at how much fun this one was. Where you have to be careful about what lure you use, and try to catch as much fish as you can in terms of the weight. And we played this twice. There's several different lakes with it, and I really enjoyed it. I know Doug Sessoms has been inspired by my playthrough of that and went ahead and ordered it. I'm definitely going to do more with Real-Time Proficient. That was a lot of fun. I think I played that 3 times on the channel. Last up, the last game for the year was a matchup of Fall Classic Baseball by ASG Games. This one took us to the 2011 season with the Baltimore Orioles playing the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox actually won this game 5-3 as they managed to beat the Orioles. This one reminds me of APA baseball a little bit, but I really like the involvement of the ballparks, and the lack of traded players here does bother me. I normally don't talk too much about setup, but I did notice that I had to go find one of the players on a different team. So that does bother me a little bit. Not oh my god, I'm ready to purge this game bad, but again, more something to be aware of. So before we jump into Mystical Munchies, I did allude a little bit to my baseball rankings. Like I mentioned, I'd say 1 and 1A are payoff pitch and season ticket. Which is which depends on the day you catch me on. I think my number 3... My number 3 would probably be... I think it would be Fall Classic for me, just because it's actually a bit simpler than Inside Pitch, where it's basically like an APA roll, and the fast action cards really help with Fall Classic for me. Whereas Inside Pitch, I know Inside Pitch has got the base running cards, but I haven't done anything with the base running cards, especially since the new base running charts came out for Inside Pitch. Plus, I think I'm a little skeptical of Inside Pitch, since I did purge Inside Pitch once already. So maybe there's a little bit of subconscious, okay, let's be a little bit shy about that one. Then I'd go History Maker Baseball, just because I really like the narrative aspect of that, and actually History Maker and Fall Classic are fairly close together as well. Similar to how Payoff Pitch and Season Ticket are 1 and 1A, I'd say a History Maker and Fall Classic are kind of 2A and 2B. 3 in that note would be Inside Pitch, because I talked about this when I closed up with Inside Pitch. From a narrative standpoint, Inside Pitch does almost everything I could ask for from a baseball game. Mechanically, learning it was a pain in the neck, and I'm still kind of fighting with it a little bit. It's not horrible, but it's enough to know about. And then last for me is Strat Baseball. So if I was purging a system right now, I think Strat's the one that would probably be on the cutting block, or on the chopping block, I should say. I don't have that many seasons of Strat, so it wouldn't be too much to replace it. And I'm thinking at this point that my purchases moving forward are going to be in Payoff Pitch and Season Ticket most likely, but we'll see what I think of the other systems next time I do baseball stress testing. Anyway, we're an hour and a half into the stream. That is finally it for the games, and I'm going to take a drink of each before we recap Mystical Munchies. Like I said, two-fisted drinker tonight. Anyway, let's recap Mystical Munchies. For this month, for December, we were cooking out of the Corleone Family Cookbook, and I think this is the first cookbook in quite a long time where I've been mostly happy with the recipes that I made. So for the appetizer, we made the pasti fagioli. If you've ever been to Olive Garden, you might have had pasti fagioli. This was supposed to be more soup, but my version turned out as more spaghetti. But taste-wise, I was very happy with how it turned out, and I think I liked how it turned out better as spaghetti than as soup, because I've never been the biggest soup guy in the world. But like I said, this turning out as spaghetti, I think I was very happy with this. Then we had the side fettuccine alfredo. This one I was very happy with how it turned out, even if the leftovers were a little bit of a problem. I think if I would have had more heavy cream and a little bit more liquid, it probably would have turned out a little bit less solid, especially on leftovers. Taste-wise, very happy with how it played out. Same feeling with the shrimp scampi, because with the shrimp scampi, everything there turned out very well, very good as well. Getting the bread for the butter was also something I really enjoyed. Then for Christmas Mystical Munchies, when I was on the other side of the state, I made the green salad as was requested by my mom. The salad was a little bland and oily, and I later discovered that the olive oil had expired in 2022, it turned out. So far, seemed to be fine, no problems there, but that might have caused problems with how oily the recipe was. When she added in mint later, that actually worked out a little bit better to help bring some flavor into it. Honestly, I probably don't see myself doing anything with the green salad in the future. Then for the dessert, we made the olive oil and orange cake. I did enjoy the cake, but one thing to note is it doesn't keep well as leftovers, and it's got a very strong orange flavor to it because you're grinding everything up for the orange in the food processor. I'd be curious about doing this with another citrus, like if I wanted to do this with lemon or lime potentially, to see how that turns out. I'd also be curious about making more cake recipes that use oil instead of butter, which is apparently an Italian thing to do, to use oil instead of butter. That might be something I want to explore if I want to find more oil-based cake recipes. Anyway, that's it for Mystical Munchies. Next up, we're going to do a quick reminder on Ask Me Anything. I didn't have any AMA questions this month. Let me just check that real quick. No AMA questions this month. So if you want to get something if you want to ask me something for AMA, the way you do that is you're going to leave a comment on any video between this recap and the last game video for the month before the recap. You're going to leave a question in the comments of the video with an AMA tag on it so I know it's for AMA. As long as it's not too personal, I will answer it. In terms of what I deem too personal, admittedly, it's total arbitrary judgment on my part. There's no real hard and fast rule I give people. There's more of a guideline, and the guideline I give people is this. If you don't want a question asked of you, don't ask it of me. Pretty simple guideline, I think, and helps keep things under control in terms of there not being any questions that are too personal. I've only had to shut down a couple of questions on AMA. Like I said, if they're too personal, I will shut them down, or I'll answer them on the side. Anyway, as I mentioned, I do have a few special topics I want to talk about. I talked about one of them when I went through my baseball rankings, but I do want to talk about, first up, some concerns with Christmas in Arkham. More specifically, how I determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham. Back when I was first setting up this campaign, this was way back in 2021, 2022, I used Fate of the Elder Gods and set that up to help me determine the opponent for Christmas in Arkham. And at the time, I didn't have any other games that would really serve that purpose. I was also insistent on having the theme in whatever game I picked. Then a few things happened, and a lot of it started with Jester not liking the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. He thought we were spending way too much time on Prelude, and I kind of agreed with him. The more I kind of sat with that and thought about it, I kind of agree with him that we spent way too much time on Prelude. I'd also picked up a lot of Play Games. Play Games has actually been a company that I've done a lot with this year, as you've probably been seeing. My discovering Play Games was like a match made in heaven, too. But that'll be a different topic we could dive into. With the rise of AI like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, what have you, I saw an opportunity to play around with using a new game to determine the opposition for Christmas in Arkham. Admittedly, one thing that did bother me about the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament was that it was the same ancient one that was eligible for the tournament, so we never got to spotlight some of the other ancient ones that did cross all three of the Arkham Horror Files games. So in the name of Thanksgiving tradition, I kind of swallowed that since it was easy to be like, okay, we've got Thanksgiving weekend, we've got tournament action all weekend. It was basically easy content is what it was. But now I'm starting to explore that, especially since this year we also had a 2-time winner in the tournament as Shubni Gudath won the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament, both the first time it ran and the most recent time it's run. And I get the sense that that being able to use a monster without not necessarily eating into your turn and not having a curse is very powerful. And that gives Shubni Gudath a huge advantage because that's her dark gift in Fate of the Elder Gods, is she can explore, she can use monsters without having anything going, without eating into her turn or taking a curse. And we only had 3 different Ancient Ones win the tournament. We had Hastur, Yog-Sothoth, and Shubni Gudath twice. Odds are I might not be looking at this as hard if A, Jester didn't come in, and B, I didn't have the 2-time winner in Shubni Gudath. Plus, it didn't help that of the 4 times I've run this tournament, Shubni Gudath has been a finalist 3 times. The only time she wasn't a finalist, I want to say, I'm actually going to look it up here because I'm curious, but I'm pretty sure the last time Shubni Gudath wasn't a finalist in the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament was, 2023, the year Hastur won. So basically having the same Ancient Ones in the finals, and actually I'm just going to look through the history here. Let's see, Yog-Sothoth. I think Yog-Sothoth was Yog-Sothoth was only a 2-time finalist. Atlach Naka's been a 2-time finalist. Ithaca, I want to say, was also Ithaca was a 2-time finalist as well. So also having the same Ancient Ones in the finals of the tournament was kind of the final nail in the coffin. So I guess where I'm going with that is this year is probably the last time I'm going to run the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. So I'm going to probably be using a different game to determine the opponent for both Christmas in Arkham and for the Summer of Lovecraft, because I run into the same problem in the Summer of Lovecraft using Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, but the problem is even worse there because there's only, I want to say, like 5 or 6 Ancient Ones that cross all 4 games. So I think I'm probably going to have to junk Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu for determining the opponent for the Summer of Lovecraft as well. We'll see what I decide to do in 2026 when it gets to be time for the Summer of Lovecraft. As for the campaign proper, I was always intending both Christmas in Arkham and the Summer of Lovecraft to be mini campaigns. That was another piece of feedback Jester had, where it was only the 3 games and then, it's already over. That was always intended to be a mini campaign. I did start to explore a little bit some ideas in terms of maybe using like Call of Cthulhu one-shots or something to expand on the campaign, but I'm not as warm to the idea of expanding the main campaign as I am about using a different game to determine the opposition. But I'll talk more about that when I start thinking about it a little bit more. Next, I want to address something that I've alluded to off and on during some of my videos. I've talked off and on about launching a wrestling federation using Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling by Play Games on the channel. That's where I've been doing a lot of stress testing for wrestling. I don't know where that's going to go yet, and I did want to originally start it with the start of the year, but as I'll be counting down my top 100 games with Jester, I'm not going to be able to do that right at the start of the year. As Christoph now stops by, Happy New Year, Christoph. 231 over in Belgium, I think, January 1st. Just home, gonna have some friends over. Very cool. Hopefully you have fun with that. And hopefully you're enjoying listening to me ramble about my 2025 and some of my things I'm thinking about. So it turns out counting down my top 100 games with Jester is actually going to work, because that'll give me a little bit more time to set up the roster and some other things I need to figure out. I'll talk more about that, though, during January's Pinot with Phoenix, as I'm expecting to launch that in January, as I'm expecting to launch that in February. Before we talk about what's coming in January, let's tab over to my second monitor so I can share some of the goals I have for 2026. We'll zoom this in just a touch. So these are the things I want to try to get to in 2026. One of my big things is get all the games played in my collection. I've been using ChatGPT to help me kind of fine-tune, cull my collection. So I want to get everything played so I can feel like, okay, I like this game, I'm going to do more with it, or why do I have this game? I'm getting it out of my collection. So I've already done that a lot, and again, that's where having Noble Knight so close really helps me out, because I've got that built-in pressure valve, essentially, of, okay, I didn't like this game. This can go to Noble Knight on my yearly run. Ramblings are usually straight from the heart, so no worries. Thanks for the kind words there, Christoph. And yeah, that's the idea here. So that's one of my goals in 2026 is to get all of my games played in the collection. Another goal I have is I want to try to do at least one Wednesday campaign. What I mean by a Wednesday campaign is I've got my 5 Sunday campaigns that I run. I've got 2 in Arkham Horror, the card game, for the winter and the spring. Spring, I usually try to do a return to in Arkham Horror, the card game, just to mix it up. Then I've got a fall campaign where I'll do something else. That's a campaign. And then I've got the Summer of Lovecraft and Christmas in Arkham, which I also count as campaigns. But I've got a lot of small games as well, like all the Hunters series, some of my Historic Wings stuff. So I'm going to try to do at least one Wednesday campaign this year, because I've got plenty of stuff that I could easily dip into for a Wednesday campaign. Then I mentioned this earlier, but I do want to launch my wrestling promotion in Face to the Mat Pro Wrestling. I'm probably going to have to launch that during my top 100 games with Jester, but I need some time to get the roster sorted on that. So stay tuned to the channel for developments on that front. Then another goal I've got is I want to finally decide the football question in my replay library. This is talking about my sports replays. I've gone back and forth with football as being part of my replay library and how I want to do it. So football games, for me at least, I've had a touchy relationship with them except for a couple. I think Momentum Football, Glory Days Pro Football, and second season football and season ticket football are the only ones I have been completely hostile to in terms of mechanics. I've gone back and forth with APA Football, and I actually as part of my last trade I did with Jester, I traded for his APA Football stuff with the college football teams. I'm not going to be doing I'm not going to be doing a college football season replay. If I do anything with college, it'll probably be more of a traditional tournament format where, say, I'll set up a 16-team bracket or whatever and take them through a tournament. But we'll see what happens there. So I definitely want to figure out the football question in my library. And like Jester, I have a new game goal on the channel. Unlike him, however, I'm not looking to play a lot of new games this year. Or yes, there's going to be new stuff coming in incidentally, but I really want to continue fine-tuning my collection, because I started that I'll talk about that. Have to go. Friends almost here. See you later, Phoenix Knight, and thanks for the content and games you play. Thanks for watching my content this year, Christoph, and thank you to everybody who stopped by and watched my content this year. Hopefully you have fun with your friends, Christoph, and celebrate your Happy New Year. Hopefully you'll stop by for more videos on the channel. There will be plenty of stuff coming in the year. Anyway, talking about the new games in the collection. I don't want to start pulling in a whole bunch of bunch of new games to the channel. I mostly want to play into the collection and to the channel. I mostly want to try to dig in a little bit more into what I've got already. So that being said, at most in 2026, I want to play at most 40 new games into the collection and play them. Like I said, I really want to focus on what I've got already this year, because I've got a lot of stuff I've got quite a few games that I haven't played yet, so I want to make sure those get played at some point. Anyway, I'm rambling on that point. So let's bring it back up top. So now we can talk about what's coming in January. We're not wasting any time in January, because tomorrow morning actually, the 2001 season in Payoff Pitch Baseball will be taking center stage as we start with the first at least 2 blocks of that replay. The first block for sure is already set up. We will be at the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, as the Texas Rangers will be leading off the 2001 season, taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. As for the other scheduled videos, Sundays will feature the winter campaign in Arkham Horror, the card game. We'll be doing the Drowned City, and I will have the intro video for that tomorrow. I'm probably going to be doing that between the 2 blocks in the 2001 season. For Wednesdays, we're going to be featuring the Hero Realms background campaign. Then we're going to set up a new pilot in Defending America, Intercepting the America Bombers. Then we'll have our first new game debut on the channel as we play Kernathalis, that's an RPG, and then we'll play Age of Innovation. As for Mystical Munchies, we are going to be cooking out of a thematically appropriate cookbook in January. We will be cooking out of the official Frozen cookbook. We are going to be making Cool as a Cucumber salad with dill, Certain Certainties butter braised red potatoes, Coronation Day herb crusted prime rib with blueberry au jus and horseradish salad. That is a mouthful. Reindeers are better than people's antlers, and apple cider worth melting for. There are 5 Saturdays in the month, so we also need a drink. With that all said, let's wrap this video up. First of all, I want to thank you, all of you guys, for stopping by on the channel and enjoying my content. It's been a great 2025, and I'm looking forward to an even better 2026. So now let's talk about what's coming. Let's wrap this video up and talk about what's coming in the immediate future. Still busy on the channel, even though production is going to be slowing down, as I will be going back to work starting on Friday. Tomorrow morning, though, we will be at the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to start the 2001 baseball season replay, as the Texas Rangers are playing the Toronto Blue Jays. Rick Helling will be on the mound for the Rangers against Esteban Loaiza for the Blue Jays. Saturday, Mystical Munchies will start out of the official Frozen cookbook as we make the appetizer, Cool as a Cucumber salad with dill. Sunday, we'll have the first scenario for Arkham Horror the card game. I forget what that scenario is called, in the Drowned City, but we'll talk about that during the campaign intro tomorrow. We'll talk about that during the campaign intro tomorrow. Once again, thank you for joining me for 2025, and hopefully you'll stick around for 2026. Thank you for watching this video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.